Welcome in, folks, to another edition of another Cleveland Sports Podcast. My name's Andrew. I'm with Jordan. And Jordan, it's not really all Cleveland sports right now. It's really just the one Cleveland sports team. And so we got to talk about the Cavs. Like, just first thing, jump in right now. They're the best team in the history of basketball, right?
Yeah, no, that's correct. I'm glad that you brought that up. I think you can't really, by every metric that's available in human history, this is the best Cavs team and best basketball team of all time. And I just think what a treat it is to be able to be a fan of a team that, you'll tell your grandkids about and they'll write songs about probably. So I think that's really exciting.
It's wild that James Harden unlocked this, right? Because, like, I think, like, we talked about this when it happened of like, well, there's some reservations. Like, it probably improves their outlook overall. And, it's like probably an improvement over Darius Garland just in terms of like how the team's going to work. But you weren't expecting it to feel so different, I don't think. Like, I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to just be like, it feels like a different team, right?
It feels like a different team. I am also just so like in awe of the fit when he basically played 2 to 3 games before the 3 games before the All-Star break. They had no practice. He did
Right.
not practice with them. By all the reporting, his first practice with them was a couple days ago because they had this long break after the All-Star festivities. So they were off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that's like the first time he's had a legitimate practice with the team. And like watching him play, it's like he's been on the team for not even like a season, but for like multiple years.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so to me, that is the most like incredible part of this is listen, like he's a super talented player. Like I don't think anybody was disputing that, but it was like, well, what style of basketball is he going to play? He's also 36. Um, he's
Which
also
is
somebody
obviously very, very old. And that's something I feel comfortable with you saying.
I like to think of it as young, but in a different space. In
Right.
basketball,
Right.
you're
Right.
essentially like you're being taken to a senior
Right.
living
But
home.
yes, but in what, golf, he's relatively youthful.
Yeah, like, and when I walk down the street and everybody's like, "Wow, you look so young," and I'm like, "Thank you."
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's not apples to apples.
no, you can't compare.
Talking about like his fit, and like you were kind of saying, like he's an established player who it feels like he's been here for a long time. One of the things that I've been wondering is, to what extent do you think this was a sort of, I mean, you kind of like, again, it's early, right? So like you want to be guarded against overreacting, but it does feel to me like maybe a coup on behalf of somebody within the Cavs organization to essentially say, like, this is the missing ingredient that we need, and this will unlock some things that maybe it doesn't feel apparent from the fit from the player that you're losing in Garland or the player that you're gaining, that you would make that change, right? And so I'm wondering, do you have a sense of like, is that a Kobe Altman thing? Is that a Kenny Atkinson thing? Is that just, or is this just dumb luck?
I mean, I think you've got to give Kobe Altman a ton of credit here, even if like I don't think he could have predicted how seamless this would be.
Right.
I think the other part of this is, Andrew, like it came together so quick that there was really no time for like pre-trade analysis. There was never like
Right.
rumors about like the Cavs being interested in James Harden until literally a couple of days before the deadline. So we didn't really have any time to like digest what this would look like. It just sort of was like, whoa, like what do you mean you're trading Darius Garland for a 36-year-old type of
Right.
thing? And that's
Right.
why I think the initial reactions were fairly negative. And
Mhm.
I'll admit I wasn't like fully out on it, but I was pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
But I also think there was really no time to think about it
Mhm.
at all. It just sort of happened. So I do think no, I think there's some luck involved. I think you had to get buy-in from James Harden to play
Right.
like he's been playing. I
Right.
think he
That's the part that's
100%.
like, wow.
And so I don't know what those conversations were. I don't know, he can say one thing because he wants another contract and then he can
Right.
play a different way, which like, again, so much of this is about him wanting a new contract next season.
Mhm.
People have reported on this, but he basically had a partially guaranteed contract next year with the Clippers, and the Clippers were essentially just told him, like, we're not going to guarantee that whole contract. It's not happening. And
Right.
he was like, cool, I'm out of here. So a lot of this is him wanting money, which James Harden has always
Sure.
placed above a lot of things. So I think it
Understandably
definitely,
so, by the way. Like,
understandably so, get your
probably would be
bread.
me.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, your beard's getting close to his, so you're basically the same person.
You know what? Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. No, but I think to your point, like, obviously they did their research, and the Cavs front office, and they felt like this was a bet they were
Right.
confident in making.
Yeah.
And from the outside, it looked like, wow, this is a pretty big risk that you're taking. And now, I mean, again, yeah, they just played the Brooklyn Nets, who are basically a G League team, but like the way that he is masterfully just controlling the offense and is seeing openings and passing lanes like 3 steps ahead. I mean, I tweeted this out, but he had 5 assists last night that I was just like, what? Like, he's halfway down the floor and he already knows where he's going with the ball. So,
right.
It's really been pretty unbelievable to watch, and a huge kudos. You know, even if this hadn't worked, and again, we're not to the playoffs yet, so I do want to. It's been, the Cavs season was so miserable up until this point that I am just like, you know what, I'm gonna let myself be.
It's kind of like the Flacco thing from 23.
Absolutely,
the Browns, right? Where you're just like, when it happened, you were like, well, this isn't going to work. There's no way this is going to work. It's Joe Flacco. Like, he's very old and like very not in his prime. And then when it starts working, you're like, well, this certainly isn't sustainable. And then it continues working.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I guess maybe that's not the best comparison because things flamed out so spectacularly in the playoffs. But I do think it's a similar feeling where you feel like you're getting away with something. And given what they gave up and what they've invested, and just like for this to be this much more fun already, it's that sports fan attitude of like, well, I like watching the Cavs a lot more than I did prior to this. So you can talk about like what it means and what their ceiling is or whatever, but it's like, sports are supposed to be fun. The Cavs are more fun now. That seems like a win.
Like watching the Cavs offense is a blast again, like it was for a lot of last season, but like in a very different way. And I think like there is no clearer indication of like they should have made this bet regardless of just watching Donovan Mitchell's demeanor, of just watching like Jared Allen is as aggressive, like playing. I mean, the biggest critique of Jared Allen over these last few seasons is that he shrinks against physicality, or his effort comes and goes. And I mean, he's demanding the ball in the paint when he gets a mismatch, and he's backing. Like, he did that like 4 to 5 times last night, and Harden gets him the ball, and he's either getting fouled or he's scoring. So the vibe shift, as the kids say, was probably worth 50% of this trade, just because everybody looks so much happier. And for most of this season, they looked fairly miserable playing basketball. So that seems to have been worth it alone.
And so then the other thing I wanted to ask is, it also feels like they're tinkering around the edges of the roster a little bit. We mentioned my favorite Cavs player, Naquan Tomlin, last week, and he's continuing to play very well. And then Dennis Schroeder has gotten involved, who's like one of those guys that I've kind of always had a soft spot for, as just like a very specific role player who, when you see him, he's like usually crawling on the floor after a basketball or whatever, right? Like but he's that stuff goes a long way in playoff series. We know that, right? So it feels like they did kind of reach an inflection point of saying as you mentioned, like things are miserable and it's not quite clicking, and we want to get back to being fun and scrappy and passionate. And they've kind of identified some guys that they can infuse that are doing that. I mean, Harden's number one, but it's kind of happening all over the roster. It just feels like such a different team. And I think, to transform the team a little bit energy wise or vibe wise mid-season is kind of really a credit, right? To just like, that's hard to do.
It's really hard to do. And those moves, like in a vacuum, the Schroeder and Keon Ellis trade,
right?
Even that was slightly about vibes. Like DeAndre Hunter, who they acquired at the trade deadline last year in a move that worked pretty well for them, was having like the worst season of his career. And again, I do think it's a credit to Kobe Altman for being willing to pull the plug on something that's just clearly not working, even though they literally just traded for him a year ago. And They banished him to Sacramento. I'm sorry, DeAndre, and he got hurt like immediately, so he's not even playing. It's just like, man.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
then
mean, might be the best outcome, really, though. If you got traded to
absolutely,
Sacramento, it's like, oh man, this hamstring is killing me.
he was like, someone poked me in the eye. I can't play. And I was like, all right. Um, but I think then, in being willing to move off somebody that just is not working out, they were able to take two players who on the Kings were not really able
Right.
to do anything because the team's so bad. But when you put them on a team that is competing for a championship, like you said, Schroeder is a guy who's been around a long time. He's a little pit bull. He's going to be, he's diving on the floor. He's going to
Mhm.
get in dudes' faces, and the Cavs don't have enough of those guys. And then Keon Ellis is this super young, still developing, already a really great defender. And you can put him in the rotation, and it just means you can play guys that are pretty good rather than having to like go deep into your rotation for
Right.
somebody like a Tyrese Proctor, who is a rookie who is very inefficient, is going to struggle. Like, he's not ready to play basketball for this team right now. You can avoid sort of playing those players now. So that trade in itself was good, and then you add Harden on top of it, and I mean, they've completely remade this roster, and you're
Yeah.
seeing it in how they're playing basketball since all of those guys got here.
And sort of updated like you said, upgraded. That's the word, not updated. Upgraded the rotation, right? Like
Yep.
it's a deeper team that has to me a more cohesive team feel. And yeah, again, most importantly, fun to watch. And I think
Yeah.
the temptation when we talk about sports is always to think about, well, where can they go? What can this mean? But in every sport, every year, everybody is sad except for one team. Like it's gonna end at some point until you win the finals. And I really increasingly have just become like a firm believer in, like, you want your team to be fun to watch first.
Yes.
Like I know that this is contrary to like a lot of where modern sports discourse is, but I would rather have a fun team than a team that is just sort of mathematically tuned to give you the maximum percentage chance to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that extends to any sport we want to talk about, right? Like, one of the reasons that I think, even though the Guardians seem to have a like death drive to like play baseball for free,
Yeah.
um, they're still fun to watch because because they're fun to watch, then like you still find yourself getting invested, even though
Yep.
there's a hard cap on that when they run into one of the Monstars teams in the playoffs.
Yep.
And it's still fun. Like, it's still fun in September every year when they go on an improbable 10-game winning streak and Tom Hamilton's shouting his head off and Austin Hedges is like hitting a walk-off, and you're like, what? Why why do we have to do it this way? But it's still fun, which makes it okay in my mind.
Yeah.
It's like forgivable. I can get mad about the Dolans never spending a cent. Like, it's unforgivable what they've done to the baseball team and the fact that they don't have a chance to win, but they are fun to watch, and that makes it okay.
They're fun to watch, and their farm system is always really good.
Right.
Like,
There's going to be
they're
some new
and
guy.
yeah, there's going to be a guy, and you're going to be like, oh, that guy is exciting to me, and you
Mhm.
kind of cling on to him. And and I think your point about like the Cavs being fun again, like, two things on that. One, I was thinking about, like, during the stretch where the Cavs weren't playing, I was like, oh my god, I miss the Cavs so much. I want to watch a Cavs game.
Yeah.
And
It's a
for
little
most of
romantic.
this, it's romantic, but for most of the season, it's been like, I don't even.
Yeah.
This is not enjoyable to watch. Like, this is a chore watching these guys. And the other thing is, my dad has a college friend that is a Knicks fan. And like once a year when they play each other, like, he'll come up to Cleveland and they'll go see Cavs Knicks. And this year, my dad initially was like, I don't even know if I really want to go. Like,
Sure.
that doesn't actually sound that much fun. They're going to get blown out. And now that game is coming up in like a week or so. And all of a sudden, it's like the Cavs are a game out of the 2 seed in the East, and all of a sudden, like, this is a enormous, super fun. That atmosphere is going to be crazy, and it's like, man. And now my dad's like, well, I guess this worked out, like, so. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really crazy how things have changed, and yeah, absolutely. Now it feels like I'm texting my friends, like, oh, Cavs are on, like,
Mhm.
like it's completely changed it, and it really is just like there is no feeling quite like watching a team that is fun that is having fun. And like the Cavs on offense right now are like, I'm just having a ball watching them.
Right.
It's really wild to say that after how like most of the season went.
Yeah. So we're celebrating the Cavs. We're enjoying
We
the
are.
Cavs. The other thing I'm enjoying, Jordan, I continue to enjoy, is the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to pitch to you, I did not let you prepare for this. We're going to do this off the rip, is a quick impromptu power rankings of every sport you have watched at the Winter Olympics. I don't want to talk about anything you haven't watched.
Love that.
So you have to have observed it.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'll be honest about it.
yeah,
I'll be honest about what I've
give
watched.
me the sport. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire on this. You know how I am. Give me the sport that you've enjoyed watching the most so far.
Sport that I have enjoyed watching the most, man. This is gonna be a tough one to break it down to just the one that I've enjoyed the most. I honestly the other day, so I think I will say honestly that like men's figure skating for me was like
great.
Because one, I can't tell you the last time I tuned in to like, even when the last Winter Olympics were, like, I don't think I was that engaged.
100%
Yeah.
same.
And so I did not realize like how I was locked in. I was locked in. And I think it's because I'm so one, like the scoring is so brutal.
Yeah.
Like you make one small tiny mistake and the announcer will be like, "Oh, and his career's over."
That's right. Yeah, he could walk into the sea now.
Yes, it's really like that is very funny, but like, God, I'm gonna blank on the American's name who looks like a character from Lord of the Rings. He doesn't actually look
Mollinen,
like
right?
Yes, Mollinen.
Yeah.
I watched. This was before he lost the gold medal, which I know was
Right.
very tragic. He fell a few times during that.
He really had a rough night.
He had a rough night, but prior to that, I watched one of his performances, and the back half was set like to rap music. And I was like, let's go. Like, this is sick. So like, I appreciate that he's in there. Like, he's a personality. He's rocking like a crazy fit. It's like, I'm making figure skating cool. Let's go. So I honestly turned that on one night with my girlfriend and we sat there and we were like, hold on, I'm really enjoying this. I don't know.
I mean, that's the Olympics guarantee, is that there will be a sport where you turn on the television and you're like, well, I'm going to watch this for 5 minutes until I do something else.
Yeah.
And then a half hour, 45 minutes go by and you're riveted. And now you're like, somebody else comes into the room and you're explaining the nuances of the sport to them.
You now know
like,
all the rules.
45 minutes ago, you didn't know this was a sport. And now you're like, actually, strategically, that was pretty poor from him there. I'm quite disappointed.
Yes. Yeah. His program, actually, the level of difficulty of his program wasn't where it needed to be. And that's why he did not make a podium.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my number one. Do you want to give yours?
Well, I would have had a different answer a few days ago, but the hockey has been so good.
Hockey's been good.
The hockey has been so good. And I'm going to say contrarian take. I love the 3 versus 3 in the extra time. I'm not enough of a hockey fan to notice why it's bad. I think if I was, it would feel a little bit like the runner on second thing in baseball.
Yeah, the ghost runner. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that, and I'm sure that there are good reasons why it like offends people who are sort of, lovers of the sport. For me, it's like, look at all the cool stuff they get to do now that there's more room.
Yeah.
That's as far as I've taken the analysis of it. It's just like the defender just crossed over the person, the defenseman for the US just crossed over that person, and now they've scored a goal to win the gold medal. That wouldn't have happened if there were 5 people out there, so it's good. That's my takeaway.
I think that's a great take.
I mean, it's been so good. Today Canada won like in the last minute of regular time against Finland to go to the gold medal game. And so like just consistently game after game, it's been like you cannot stop watching it. And it's led me to one of my yearly traditions this time of year. And it usually happens in February or March. As the spring begins, I say, is this the year that I'm going to watch hockey? And, every year the answer is a little bit.
Yeah, a tad bit.
Yeah, I will a little bit.
I do wish Cleveland had an NHL team, because I think if they did, I would be into it.
Yeah.
I agree with you about the hockey. Shout out to Layla Edwards from Cleveland Heights.
Oh yeah, that's right.
it's really, it's really remarkable, Andrew, how many just talented people Cleveland Heights produces. You've got the Kelsey brothers, you've got Layla Edwards, and some are saying you've got me, and I don't want to.
Okay. All right.
I'm pumping the brakes on that.
Sure.
I'm humbled. I'm honored to be included in that group.
What is the podcast equivalent of a gold medal or a Super Bowl trophy?
It is
meeting Bill Simmons.
Don't they give Emmys for podcasts now? Didn't Amy Poehler just win an Emmy?
Okay, so your goal is to win the next Emmy.
And I think
we're podcasting.
Yeah, we're close.
We were just outside being nominated. If only we had started the podcast.
Yeah, we didn't qualify.
Right. That's the only thing stopping us.
Next year, you're flying out to LA with me, and we're going to the event in person.
What a treat. Okay. All right. So that's the goal. I like that you didn't set your sights any lower than the absolute. I mean, I guess it is technically the equivalent, but it feels a little bit out of our reach.
If both Kelseys have a Super Bowl and now Layla has a gold medal, if I'm to be included in that group, which I think I am,
you got to do it.
You got to do it.
Boy. So, okay. Big shoes.
Yeah, big shoes. No, the hockey's been really good. I also love, as a person who grew up like skiing, and I still occasionally ski, the mogul stuff blows my mind because.
So is that your number 2?
Hockey's 2.
Hockey's 2.
Mogul's 3.
Okay.
I'm just quickly going through this because if you are a person who has like been skiing and looks at moguls and you're going down it inch by inch because it's the most terrifying thing you've ever seen.
Sure, of course.
These people are flying down them at like 50 miles per hour, and they're just like how they keep their skis together. It blows my mind every time.
And then sometimes they'll just leave the course entirely.
Or they'll do it. That guy who did the
he finished it backwards
and went backwards.
Yeah.
Sick.
Easy. Easiest thing I've ever done.
Easy.
Yeah.
So easy.
I might do this all the time.
Yeah. And then I will say, Andrew, you had mentioned curling previously. I happened the other night. It was the U.S. versus Italy, and I turned it on. The U.S. did not. The U.S. kind of got smoked. But without still full, like I understand the basic. I understand the scoring and the basic rules, but I still am watching, and the commentators are talking strategy, and I'm just like, I do not understand.
Yeah.
Why did they just place it there? Why did they do that? But I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I watched that whole match, and I was like pretty into it because it's just, I don't know, the way they glide before they let it go, like how like pristine they have to be with the brooms, like they have to know exactly where to sweep, how hard to sweep, like all that stuff, man. I'm fascinated by it. So I'm going to put curling not that far below the mogul stuff. Those are probably my top 4.
All right. Yeah. So curling is actually 2 for me. And that would have been my 1 if the hockey hadn't gotten crazy, right? Like if we had a normal year of hockey, curling would be number 1 because I've really jumped into it. And I agree with you that there is still something missing for me. Because
there's still some mystery with it.
Yeah. Because the thing that I can't get to is like, it feels like when they start, they've got like a plan.
Yes.
And then by the end, there's just a mad scramble to like ram stones into other stones and clear things out. And it just kind of gets very chaotic by the end. So I'm kind of like, I guess what I don't fully get is like, is it possible to control things more?
Yeah.
Where you're like kind of, but then I watched the Swiss today play the US, and they really did kind of control the game and were leading the whole time. And the U.S. couldn't really break through. But it's an interesting sport. It's a tough one because the U.S. teams are, they've been good. The women especially have been very good. But the men's team didn't really do that well and wasn't playing very well. And so that makes it a little bit harder to watch. But I will say, I think that other teams have kind of stepped up in the and have been enjoyable to watch, and so you can kind of find your favorites. So I would say curling 2, and then I'm a fan of speed skating. I like that. It's very weird because it's the sport where they look like they're doing nothing, but they're actually doing quite a bit.
They're going
from what I understand,
and they're so tired.
That I like that sort of juxtaposition. I mean, hockey has a little bit of that. I think any ice skating kind of does, right? Where you're like, you have to just constantly remind yourself, oh, this is really hard. They're gliding, so it looks easy, but it's actually quite hard. So, I would probably put speed skating 3. I don't have like a least favorite. I watched a little biathlon, and that seemed fun. Again, something that looks, I think, a lot easier than it is. Cross country skiing and shooting seems like it's a busy day. It's a full day.
my take about cross country skiing. I have a friend who lives in Seattle who does it, and I'm like, you should like go down a hill. I've had enough. I've had enough. Why are
Yeah.
you wearing things that are meant to take you down a hill? You can, if you want to go on flat ground, you can just walk. Wear
Yeah.
shoes.
Well,
I don't
and I will say
understand.
even cross country skiing on relatively flat ground makes sense. What really blows my mind is when they try and climb a hill wearing skis.
Oh, oh, it's
Because
just,
I honestly, my thought at the time is like, aren't you just kind of tempted to pop those bad boys off and throw them over your shoulder until you get to the top of the hill?
and I'm just like, don't we walk around on flat ground every day? Why go down a hill? I just don't like, if you're gonna put those things on your feet, go down a
Yeah.
hill. I
Okay.
don't
So
understand. Man.
little hostility here on the pod for
I've
the
had,
cross country
I'm
part.
out.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
on it.
Okay. So there you go. We found our least
It's my
favorite
least favorite.
sport
That's
so
my
far.
least favorite for sure.
And I don't want to say it's least favorite. I'm confused. I'm just a little confused. That's
Yeah,
all.
same.
Yeah. Okay. Um, the other thing we wanted to talk about is the Browns just very quickly, because there's been David Njoku did this a few weeks ago where he essentially was like, speaking of people being out, Jordan's out on cross country, David Njoku out on the Browns, not coming back. And then recently this week, Wyatt Teller did the same thing, right? And you get it. These guys have been with the team for a while. So it's totally justified that they want to do kind of like a public goodbye. And I think it's sweet, that they do that. But it is funny that we're not even to the free agency period, and these guys are already very clear on the fact that they will not
Oh
be
yeah.
returning. I think it gives you a little insight into what these conversations are like with the general manager and the agent, where it's like there's not a lot of ambiguity in terms of what the Browns are trying to do financially. They are not going to be investing in any of these veteran players long term. And I thought, I mean, let's set aside for the moment, Jordan, the team building strategy. We talked about this a little bit, like the Brown stuff. We can talk about what's going to happen in free agency, but really you got to wait until you see what's going to happen. What actually does transpire. So I don't want to like do too much previewing of what they might do.
Mm-hmm.
The part of this that's interesting to me is the players put these statements out. They make it clear they're not coming back. And then there's a very interesting conversation that occurs locally within the Cleveland media market and then with fans online of reacting to what this was. And again, some of it is shaped by the fact that these are good players and have had good careers in Cleveland, so we want to celebrate them. But we also know that like what they're doing now, what they put on tape in 2025 is not what had them as like being a long-term starter in Cleveland. And so there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance there, right?
Yeah, I don't I understand people have attachments to players, and like I've never liked like people policing how other people fan. Like
Totally.
if you love
Agreed.
Wyatt Teller and you've loved Wyatt Teller his whole career, and Wyatt Teller is a very cool story. The Browns kind of like discovered him, and then he had a stretch of what 2 to 3 years where he was incredible.
Yeah,
And
there's a legit Pro Bowl,
when
borderline
yeah,
All-Pro. Yeah.
when Stefanski's run game was clicking with Nick Chubb, he was a huge part of it. So I understand attachment to players, but I think at the same time, like you said, like we all watched this past season, and like the cold reality of sports, and specifically the NFL, is once your athleticism starts to go and you're playing offensive line,
Yeah.
in a league where there are players like Myles Garrett on the other side of the ball, your time is going to go quick. And you think about like Joel Bitonio, Jack Conklin, Wyatt Teller. I mean, these are all guys that have sort of have gone over the hill in sort of their athleticism. Across the board, the Browns were one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last season. I don't think that's all on them specifically, but I think like a very large part of it, they could have had a better quarterback back there who's not holding onto the ball and all of that stuff. And it still, I think, would have been rough. And then like to your point, there becomes this, listen, like I don't give the Browns the Browns don't deserve a lot of credit on a lot of things. And part of the reason they're in the situation where all of their offensive linemen are free agents is because they have neglected to shore up the offensive line. So it's a problem they created. But having said that, this sort of this sort of narrative that now is coming out, like, oh well, they're not treating players well. They're rotating Wyatt Teller in and out, and that got him and his wife very upset. And they don't care about team building. They just treat players as objects and data points, which, like, maybe there's some truth in some of that, but like having that conversation now,
Right.
where not only was this offensive line bad, but I mean they're old. Like,
Right.
even if they had an incredible season, you're still, as Andrew Berry and as the front office, you're looking at these guys and you're saying, like, it's a risk to continue to have these people on the backside of their 30s now, like, on the offensive line.
Certainly.
So I think this is one of those things where it's like, oh, it's the Browns being the Browns. They don't, like, I've seen graphics like the Browns don't have any offensive linemen signed next year. It's like, okay, well, they're going to, like, they're going to draft some. They're going to sign some. They have, like,
free agency hasn't started. Yeah.
Yeah. And like Tevin Jenkins will probably be a part of the line. Like,
good.
DeJuan Jones is still there. So, like, again, it's, that's not super exciting, but they will have people playing offensive line.
Yeah. Right. No, they're going to fill the positions. Certainly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's a totally fair thing to say that, like, this isn't the time to hit them for that. But I do think that, this sort of offensive line apocalypse is downstream of the thing we talked about at the end of the season, which is, like, when you manage contracts the way that they do, you absolutely do take advantage of future years' cap space, but you limit your flexibility with these players. And so the best way to get their cap number off the books is to let them play out their contracts and then leave. You can't make proactive decisions about players, and you can't get ahead of the aging curve. And so the funny thing is that the reason to ding the Browns isn't that Wyatt Teller was on the team is leaving now. It's that he was on the team in 2025, right? Like, that was the mistake. It's the same thing with Jack Conklin, but the way that they handle these contracts, you can't change that. And so you end up in this situation where the Browns are going to have to do a shift change on the offensive line going into a new season. And ideally, you would have slowly changed those pieces out over the course of 2 or 3 years. But they don't have the flexibility to do that because of the way that they manage their contracts. And that continues to be the fair criticism of what they're doing. I think there is something to Andrew Berry specifically and the way that he views players as assets more than people, because of I think that's kind of indisputable based on the number of players that they have taken chances on that have significant personal off the field issues. I don't think that that's particularly disputable, but I don't think that that's really relevant to what's going on with Wyatt Teller. I think he's been treated pretty well. I mean, I guess you could say the rotation thing is a little tough, but if he plays better, he's not getting rotated. I think that's kind of the answer. So I don't think this is the area to ding them, but I also am, as you know, not somebody who's going to, like, waste a lot of time defending Andrew Berry, because there's plenty of stuff you can criticize him for.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this specific instance, there is always a sort of like, oh my gosh, like, they didn't treat these players well on the way out, and it's just something like this. To me, I do find it, like, there's part of me that's very nihilistic about this, where it's like, who cares? Like, they're not playing.
No,
well.
I agree. It's this is trying to score cheap points off the Browns.
Yes.
And you don't need to, because there's plenty of legitimate reasons to criticize them. And so that's, like, the thing of, like, this is lazy criticism.
Yes.
And you don't need to waste your time with that, because you can really, like, it's pretty obvious to pick holes.
Yeah, it is. And so this is where, like, some of these conversations that you hear, you're just like, this is, yes, you guys are doing a whole show on this, on Wyatt Teller sending a long note, and maybe his wife being very vocal on social media about it.
It really plays into our local, like, the Cleveland local media, one of their hobby horses, which is the Browns are not just bad, they're incompetent, right? And it really, like, that is a love for folks locally, is telling the story of how the Browns are specifically incompetent, even by NFL standards, and I think the truth of the matter is sadder, which is just that they're a bad football team.
Yeah.
And they don't really have a prospect of getting better in the short term. To me, that's worse, but I understand why people want to make it a story about the Browns being sort of uniquely inept. But this is the sort of thing. I was listening to Nate Tice's podcast, he was talking about how Derrick Henry got like a full send off at the end of a season when he was a pending free agent, and the Titans had the chance to trade him to Baltimore for a pick during the trade deadline. The owner vetoed it specifically because she wanted to give him like a jersey or whatever at the end of the season. So like teams do this stuff all the time with players that are heading out where they,
Yeah.
they kind of honor them in their last season, and it's corny and whatever. But I mean, the Browns are not the only team that go through this where players get old and then leave. Like that's a pretty common NFL thing.
I mean, it's the most common
Yeah.
sports. It's the hardest. I agree that like it is the part of sports that is the least fun is
Yeah.
when a beloved player basically turns into this happens in the NBA all the time where you basically just have these expiring contracts and then it's just
Right.
like, well, now you're a trade asset.
Right.
That's all you are.
Right.
You can be a player that we've beloved for a very long time. We're putting you in a deal at the trade deadline because your contract is attractive to other teams because you'll come off their books next season. So it is the hardest part of sports. I think for people that have watched sports long enough, you just are going to be like, to be naive to it is tough because it happens all the time and you just sort of have to. I mean,
Right.
it's like going through it with the Nick Chubb thing, obviously like a
Mhm.
lot of people, that is probably like his jersey's in the back. Like
Yeah.
I love Nick Chubb. Everybody loved Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb might not even be playing football next week. Like I have
Right.
no idea. His
Right.
career is probably over. The Browns made a decision that is correct and right, but it doesn't. It is. I understand. I mean, I think Wyatt Teller's a little different than Nick Chubb, but like I understand
Well, that's part of it too.
the attachment. But sometimes it's like, guys, offensive lines turn over. There are very few franchises that have the luxury of being able to keep an offensive line group
Right.
together that is successful and really good for 4, 5, 6 years in a row. So this is a pretty common practice. And your point is fair that they should have started doing this a while ago. They have not identified, like they made the Jedrick Wills pick. Like they have not been good at at the offensive line, but like they will have an offensive line in place. And even if it's like a full line change, with how this offensive line performed last season, it's worthy of a line change. So
Definitely. They need fresh blood. The other thing is that's uniquely Cleveland about this is that I think Browns fans are so unused to having players that are good long enough that they leave at the end of their contracts. Usually you're going to just get cut and leave in disgrace. And so like players in Cleveland leaving with like some hopefully road left, hopefully Njoku and Teller are able to go someplace else this year and have success. But that's not something that Browns fans are used to, I think, for the most part. And you mentioned Chubb totally correctly. Like those are players that don't really exist in Cleveland where you see them through the end of your career. Typically players come to Cleveland and then flame out and then you're happy to see them go.
I mean,
and
it was like
celebrating.
Joe Thomas was the only
for a long time. He was the only guy that ended his career in Cleveland. Yeah. And so I think there's a little bit of an adjustment period there too. And just in terms of like what it feels like to have players kind of play out the majority of their career in Cleveland and no longer be the player that they were, which is obviously the case here. So yeah, like we said, sort of, catnip or whatever for local media who wants to play like the lazy Browns bad card. But the last thing I want to just say about this is we'll revisit, I'm sure, the Deshaun Watson death march conversation in the future.
Yeah, I was going to say I think the march is briefly stopped. There's no forward motion at the moment.
I would say we're taking a little bit of a break just because we can't do it to ourselves all off season. Yeah. But trust me, we have not left. They're still there. It's just the conversation about what to expect from the Browns next year, right? And I know that there is a sentiment of like they're not trying to be bad. And I think that's fair. I don't think they're going to have to try, I guess would be my response.
No.
Like when you are replacing all 5 offensive linemen, right? When you are, you already said the name Tevin Jenkins, which is like just a sign of where we're at. Like, that's a backup player who's going to be starting for the Browns. I think it's, like fairly easy to predict that sort of thing. DeJuan Jones is probably a backup level right tackle who's going to be playing right tackle for the Browns if he can get healthy. That's before we even address the quarterback situation, including Deshaun Watson. So it's not about whether they're going to be trying to be good or trying to be bad or whatever, but they're not a good team. And Andrew Berry, we talked about this when he said it at the press conference. He telegraphed that they're not going to be invested in free agency in terms of like at the top of the market. So, Jordan, how are you going to be a good football team if you don't have an identified starting quarterback and you don't have any identified starting offensive lineman and you're not going to really participate in free agency?
Wait, you're not. You're just
Right.
not going to be a good
It's
football team, I
right.
think.
It takes care of itself. So, and again, we don't need to get ahead of ourselves. There'll be plenty of time to see what the Browns decide to do once, player movement starts. I know the combine is right around the corner, and so we'll start to get some real juicy gossip. And
Oh yeah, we
I
love
love
it.
a rumor. Nobody loves a rumor more than me. We will talk about rumors, but there's just, I just think that people need to temper their expectations for what this Brown season is going to be. And I think, Wyatt Teller leaving, the other reason I think it's upsetting is because it's like, oh, well, I remember him being good. We need
Yeah,
good players, and he's gone. So we're getting worse. And I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think the Browns are just kind of in a position where they are, whether you like it or not, they are rebuilding. They are not reloading. They are fully rebuilding this thing,
yeah,
especially on the offensive side.
yeah. Agree on all those points. I think the last thing I wanted to mention before we go is that the Browns hired a defensive coordinator, Mike
Oh yeah.
Rosenberg.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't
Some
have
great
anything
mic'd up
serious.
stuff on him.
Yeah, I don't have anything serious to say about him. The one thing I have to say about him is that, and I tweeted this because it's really remarkable. He looks like if you put a backwards hat on Baker Mayfield and said, "Why don't you come coach? Why don't you come coach the defense?" And it freaks me out. I'm gonna be honest with you, it freaks me out. I watched that mic'd up, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Man, I think that's Baker." That's like if Baker Mayfield was on. They made one of those TV shows where it's like NFL player goes undercover at
Oh,
high school
absolutely.
team.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
like
And it's
pranking.
just
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield in
Mhm.
a backwards
Yeah.
hat.
This is an Impractical Jokers starring Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, exactly. What was the show with Chad Powers?
Oh,
Where
right. Yeah. We're doing a Chad Powers.
it's a Chad
This is a
Powers
Chad Powers.
situation.
Okay, great.
And I'm
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it is Baker and he is coming to sabotage the Browns because, as we know,
Oh,
he holds a
wow.
grudge, and I'm worried about it. No, it just really is uncanny. Like I was
Interesting.
watching that video and I was like, "We're sure that's not
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield? You're telling me that's not Baker Mayfield?" So I just wanted to mention that at the
It's
end
a
here.
similar bearing. It's a similar attitude, I would say.
Same height,
Uh,
I think.
yeah, similar height.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so overall, I agree with you that I think it's something we need to be looking into because
It is. It is.
the Browns and their success this year, if Baker Mayfield is calling the defense with like vengeance on his mind,
Yeah.
because Todd Monken was his offensive coordinator in 2019. So if this is like a full
I'm
Freaky
the
Friday
the
sabotage
dots are
situation,
connecting, and if the
yeah,
Browns defense falls off a cliff, we said it here on this
yeah,
podcast on
and
February
you know what?
20th.
That's going to get you an Emmy. That sort of investigative prowess is going to get you an Emmy. So that's exciting. We got that.
I
to
want to
look forward
thank.
to.
I should start working on my speech.
Yeah. The only thing I'll just say about it, buddy, is like if you just look at what Amy Poehler's doing for her backdrop,
Yeah.
like plants
Okay.
wise and just sort of
Listen.
like lighting
Listen.
and energy. I'm not saying that you need to go all the way there.
Our sponsorships haven't come through yet. I'm waiting for our sponsorship money, and when they do, dude, this
Yeah.
background is going to be nuts.
Whatever they want back there. Yeah,
Oh my
whatever
goodness! I'll
whatever
put a
the
dude wipe
sponsors are.
sign back here. I don't care.
You will.
Dude
You
wipes.
really
Let's go.
totally will.
Oh, I
Absolutely.
will.
Yeah. It's not the
Neon
first
and
time you've
everything.
shouted out dude wipes either.
Man.
Okay. What I do want to bring back our on again, off again segment of
Yes.
recommendations because it's good and it's really good when I forget that I've already recommended something and do it with a straight face twice. So
yeah, can we go 3 times in a row? Folks,
I
we're gonna
mean,
find out right
it
now.
seems like I'm aware of it, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I've forgotten what it was. So yeah, boy, do I have a recommendation? I queued up the segment and then I realized I maybe don't.
I can
Yeah,
go if you'd
Go,
like.
go, go, go.
Okay. I'm going back to TV. I have 2 recommendations.
Great,
Okay.
perfect.
I have one is the show The Traitors, which is on NBC.
This is the Alan Cumming.
This
show?
is the Alan Cumming hosted show
Uh-huh.
in a giant castle in Scotland,
Mhm.
where a bunch of like reality TV stars and various other people, such as Donna Kelsey, for some reason,
Sure.
they basically play a game where a handful of them are deemed traitors at the beginning of the show. The rest are called faithfuls. It is the job of the faithfuls to try and figure out who the traitors are and get them kicked out of the show. And I'm going to tell you what.
Uh-huh.
Incredible television.
Okay.
It is my favorite, and I'm not even a huge reality TV person. It is
Yeah.
my favorite
Wow.
reality show by far this season, which is about to come to an end, but
Mhm.
you can obviously watch all the episodes. Has been the best season since it started. And Alan Cumming his wardrobe is immaculate. The outfits he wears are through the roof. He's hosting a show better than any host has ever hosted a show before. It's just really through the roof. So I wanted to say that. And then the other thing, I had some Game of Thrones fatigue, and when they announced this show about Dunk and Egg, which is a novella by George R.R. Martin,
and let's just say an embarrassing thing to say out loud.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right, saying the phrase "dunk and egg" with a straight face, is not realistic.
No, it's not. But I did it, and I'm gonna tell you what. So I didn't watch it, and I was like, I think I'm good. Like House of the Dragon kind of tanked for me a little bit. Wasn't super into it. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is what they're calling this on HBO,
because they understand that calling it Dunk and Egg would have ended.
Well, listen,
it would have absolutely.
Yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I just caught up on it. It's fantastic. It's really, really good. It's like, and it's only 30 to 40 minutes, so it's not an hour long like the rest of the Game of Thrones universe.
All right.
There's only been 5 episodes, I think. If you haven't watched it and you're into that, I would say it's really. I was skeptical. It's great. So those are my 2.
Am I allowed to ask clarifying questions about your recommendation?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so for the Game of Thrones TV show, how much quiet whispering in castles occurs?
You know what? There's not a lot. It's very different. It's very different.
That's what that's because when you say Game of Thrones fatigue, specifically what I got very tired of was a 5 or 6 minute conversation about like someone's bloodline happening in a quiet whisper with a torch somewhere behind you.
Now there are torches. They're outside though. They're outside in the show.
I just the shadowy and the whispering and the long conversations. It just was. It becomes. You just kind of realize that like it's very hard to pay attention to people whispering for that long. I think
it is, and I also had a lot of questions about like what are these people doing all day? They're just sitting in a chair waiting for someone to come talk to them. Yeah,
right.
Like
is that monarchy? Is that what monarchy is?
Is that what monarchy is?
Is that what kings are doing?
Seems like
all right. My recommendation actually might land as a sponsorship, Jordan, because this is a product and it's here on my desk and I'm going to hold it up. I'm not afraid to do this. This is gum.
Okay.
That is like, this is something that was sold to me on Instagram. And I think you and I'm sure both have had the experience of like being sold something on Instagram that does not satisfy.
Oh, and, like, you order it doesn't work at all.
Like, I mean, everybody's been sold something, but like, I think a lot of people have the experience of like, you buy it and then it shows up and you're like, whoop. That was $30 that I
super deflated. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, it's like maybe it's like a supplement and you're like, I'm not going to use these. And, they just kind of sit or, it's like some sort of doodad, that just ends up in a closet or whatever.
Love a doodad reference here. That's
right.
Stuff.
Like some sort of thing that you're like, this is going to help all your shoulder pain. And then you never use it more than once. This is, I am doing an ad, but it's essentially like a sugar-free natural gum. And I have to say, it's a genuine pleasure to chew.
That's a delight.
So if the folks at Underbrush want to get in touch.
Hi, Underbrush.
Yeah.
It's Jordan and Andrew.
It's Jordan and Andrew. And we're doing an unpaid ad read at the end of our podcast.
This is an ad read. This is an ad
read. Uncompensated ad read. But it genuinely,
you love it.
I'm not like the biggest chewing gum person because it just like 5 minutes later, it's just kind of deflating. This is like something that I will chew and enjoy chewing for an hour.
I was going to say, how long is the most important thing to me about gum is how long does the flavor last? And if you're saying an hour too,
the flavor lasts for a while, but the experience. So like
it's the chewing experience that's the most enjoyable.
It's really enjoyable, and I guess I would say like the overtone flavor goes away fairly quickly because it is natural, but the undertone flavors stay because part of what it's made with is like pine resin. So there's like a little pine thing that just kind of keeps on for you. So
now is this your company is what you're saying? This is your company. This is what you're doing.
I mean, look, am I an investor?
You've been making
am I out in the backyard cutting down pine trees?
I see those trees behind you. What's going on?
Yeah. No, I know it's very funny because most of the recommendations are things that are just sort of more anodyne. This is a specific product. But I genuinely think it's a good time, and
I love it.
If they're our first sponsor, that's not the worst thing that's ever happened in the world. So
no,
that's the recommendation that I have. And while you're at it, enjoy another sauna. So for Jordan,
make sure you're getting back in that sauna. Also, Underbrush will tag you on Twitter. So we'll tag you.
I mean, we probably should. In all honesty, like
Probably will.
I kind of did a good job. Okay.
It's a great read. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's not the worst thing. I think we're in their league. I don't think they're out of our league. Like I'm not gonna like reach out to like a national brand.
Yeah. Hi, Mercedes-Benz.
Right.
What's your spending looking like for the rest of the year?
Can you imagine? Yeah, I don't. Our brand is not very much Mercedes.
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah, great show. Nice work. Thanks to everybody for listening, for watching, whatever. I think I mentioned it at the beginning last week. We have an RSS feed, so if you're watching this on YouTube and you got to the end, you can also subscribe in a normal podcast way. But wherever you listen, be sure to hit subscribe, like us, give us a review, whatever you do, leave a comment, all the things, and we'll be back next week with another one of these, which is another Cleveland Sports Podcast. Until then, everybody, take care.